One summer day, we was chilling at my uncle's house, and my mom started acting really strange. I'm like, y'all see what's going on right here? Like, I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, you feeling okay? You need some water, anything like that? And she was like, I can't feel the whole right side of my body. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? So I'm like, yo, she really might be like having a stroke right now.
Welcome to the Grief Bully Podcast. I am your host, Jay Nicole. Thank you for joining our weekly discussion around grief, mental health, and your overall personal wellness. The Grief Bully Podcast will serve as a vehicle to help you navigate life's journey. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the podcast with anyone in your life that you think it will help. Let's bully grief together. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the Grief Bully Podcast. I am your host, Jay Nicole. Guys, we're back in the building, rocking and rolling for another conversation. And I am excited today because this conversation is long overdue. We've been rocking and rolling, just supporting each other from afar for, man, it's definitely probably been about 5 years, if not more now. And so I'm happy, elated. I feel blessed to have with me today T. Goodwin from over in Philly, came over to New Jersey with us. What's up?
Hey,
How you doing?
I am good. Super excited to be here today. Like you said, this is well overdue.
For sure.
Definitely well overdue. But I'm ready to tell the truth, let the people know how it is, because it's nothing like personal experience. It's the only way we can learn, right?
Definitely. And that's the thing too, is like a lot of guests I've had come on the show, they may or may not be podcasters or people who utilize their platforms to openly express where they are, maybe from music or different things like that, but just knowing you and understanding your story, but then also like really appreciating and extending gratitude to the fact that you've also created platforms for other people to share their stories, especially women, and then also people who have lost their mother, things like that. So just kind of getting into that, that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard pill to swallow. So I want to just talk about that experience of, unfortunately, losing your mother at a young age. So let's start from the younger version. What was that experience like?
So that experience was very complex. I had just was about to graduate with my master's degree. And what happened was one summer day, we was chilling at my uncle's house, and my mom started acting really strange. I'm like, y'all see what's going on right here? Like, I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, you feeling okay? You need some water, anything like that? And she was like, I can't feel the whole right side of my body. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? So I'm like, yo, she really might be like having a stroke right now. So, we called the ambulance. The ambulance came. We went to the hospital. So we got to the hospital. They said, of course, she had a minor stroke. And they were like, we don't know how she's going to rehab from this. But we like, well, she looks fine. Like, it doesn't look like anything crazy. Like she would have like super long-term issues or anything like that. So, she was in the hospital for about a week or so. And then her platelet level got low. So, they had Red Cross come in, do some blood transfusions, all of that good jazz. And then she went to rehab. When she went to rehab, regular standard rehab, learning how to do things over again, unfortunately. And then we went home. When we got home, I was probably home for about 4 or 5 days, and she had this fever that wouldn't break. So I'm like, okay, at least I know what to do in these kind of circumstances. Okay, let me go ahead, get some meds and stuff like that, try to break this fever. And the fever I was like, all right, well, maybe it takes a while. So I waited a day or so. And then the next day I was like, all right, this fever is still way too high. So I end up calling the ambulance, and the ambulance came, and they was like, asking all the regular questions, like, why did you call? Da 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 da. And I was like, she has this fever that won't break, but then she started kind of getting a little delusional, kind of disoriented. So they were like, okay, we're definitely going to take her in. And that was the last day I heard my mother speak. And she said, my daughter says something is wrong, so I need to go. Right. So we went to the hospital, and kind of everything went downhill from there. She was in the hospital for about 3 weeks before she had eventually passed away. But everything just started going down. Organs started just shutting down. Everything. I think they revived her twice. Because as a child and the only child, you're like, just do whatever you need to do
Of course.
to save your parent or just save a loved one, period. So she was in like a regular room, and then they said we need to take her to intensive care. So of course, when you hear intensive care, you automatically get like, oh gosh, the end is coming, yada yada yada. But sometimes people need to go into intensive care just to get 24-hour care,
Mm.
so they can kind of monitor better. So I'm like, all right, that might just be for the best. So me and one of her best friends, we were all in the freight elevator together, so they can take her to the intensive care unit. And my aunt looked at my mom and said, "You don't want to go there, do you?" And she like shook her head. So we get inside of the intensive care unit, and then that's when everything really started going downhill. So she suffered from a lot of things, like just like I said, organs started shutting down. They were talking about putting her on dialysis. Like it was just so many things happening. So I said, me being the responsible child that I am, I'm gonna just start making phone calls because I really don't know how things are going to go down. For those who have individuals that have been in the hospital, like you get constant phone calls, like phone ringing off the hook because so many doctors and everybody's calling you and trying to figure out what they should do and so on and so forth. And it was that morning of October the 13th that my aunt and her daughter went to go see her, like an early morning visit.
Mm-hmm.
And they called me, and it was about probably like 8 o'clock. And my aunt was like, "You need to get here like now." So I'm like, "Oh my gosh." But thank goodness, the hospital only about 5 minutes from my house. So I was like, "All right, cool." Jumped in the car, got there, and my aunt was like, "She going, girl. Like, gone. Is no bringing her back." And I was like, "What?" Like, and it took me back because I'm like, all this time, you trying to figure out what you can do to keep them here. Because I didn't know if I was going to be put in a situation where she would have to be on life support and I would have to make the decision to let her go or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand in situations you can't be selfish. So, you have to do what's best for them, because I would hate for somebody to be in internal pain, fighting a battle that they don't even know they're fighting,
Mm-hmm.
for you to just be able to see them every day. And they're not even in a condition that you even want to see them. So, of course, they take you into the room, they tell you everything that happened, so on and so forth. And I believe at that time and that day, I kind of might have been comfortable with had happened, but everything still had not kind of like loaded up on me yet. It was still kind of a shock and everything else. So, of course, family and friends come up, and, then we putting together funeral arrangements, so on and so forth, which was a headache altogether. But thank God for support,
Mm-hmm.
family that understands the needs of myself and her. And they were able to step in and be able to kind of take control of that situation, because that's a lot for me as a 22, 23 year old trying to navigate school, trying to navigate her. I had been taking care of my mom since I was 8 years old. So it
What's
was
that?
a
What's
lot.
that? You've been taking. So I think. So I feel like that might be where I was a little bit, not say confused, but
Mm-hmm.
I know you were talked about like taking care of your mom like younger.
Mm-hmm.
So I was confusing that she passed when you were young. So
Mm-mm.
what do you
So
mean
she
that you?
passed when I was 23, but my mom, when I was 8, got injured on the job.
Okay.
She had a client that twisted her arm and gave her permanent nerve damage on the whole right side of her body. So she had to learn how to, hold utensils again and all the other kind of stuff. So I've been a caregiver since 8.
That's what I heard. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That you were a
Mm-hmm.
caregiver since 8. So
Yeah.
I miss. Okay. I
And
misunderstood.
it's stressful. It was stressful as a kid. And people like, "Oh, well, you're the only child, so you must have had the greatest life." No, it's hard
Wow.
being the only child. It's a lot of responsibility being the only child. You don't have that sibling to say, "Go take that trash out while I do this." You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, you go take out the trash and you have to do X, Y, and Z. So it was a lot of responsibility that I carried as a child. I had an amazing childhood. I traveled the world. I was a great student in school. So it wasn't like, I didn't reap the benefits of being the only child, but I had to grow up fast, which made me feel like I missed out on some of my childhood. And I actually thought about that just maybe a couple years ago. Like, I probably missed out on a few things because I was taking care of my mom. We going to doctor's appointments. We doing this and we're doing that. But, I had to come to, years later, when I realized I needed help. I had to figure out how to navigate this grief journey by myself. And I just told somebody today, some things don't involve people. Some things involve you to just do it by yourself.
That's a lot. That is a lot. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think where do I start? So first, I'm definitely going to extend my condolences. I mean, I think sometimes people say it just to say it because it seems like a pleasantry, but I
Mhm.
truly mean that. And I think that it's a tough thing to go through no matter what age you are. So if you were 8, if you were 22, if you're 60 and your parent is
Yeah.
80, it doesn't change the pain and the experience because at the end
Mhm.
of the day, they're still not here. And
Absolutely.
so just going into the part 2 about losing parts of your childhood, when I talk on a show about grief, of course, I speak a lot about losing loved ones and things like that, but that's a big loss as well. Or
Mhm.
I mean, I say big because that's for you to determine. But that's a loss as well to be able
Mhm.
to lose some of the things of not just being an only child, but just being a child. And so the other thing that you said was you felt in a moment, I guess, when your aunt was saying, she's gone, girl. You said that you might have felt comfortable then with it, or I just wanted to
Right. I
understand that
feel
part.
like at that moment I didn't have as much pain as I thought I would have.
Okay.
The pain came afterwards, like now trying to acknowledge that this person even is not here anymore. So now the adjustment of being really the only child, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right, now I'm going to navigate life without my mom, can't tell about, oh, my new boyfriend, she's not going to be there when I get married. She's not going to be there when I have my first child, like those things, the experiences and just becoming an adult. Because you talking about fresh out of college, I'm still turning up. So it's like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what life is now going to look like without her. So like I was saying, like you become numb sometimes. Like, you
What
know,
did life start to look like? Like what did it start to look like right shortly thereafter, in contrast to how it was prior to your mom passing?
empty. Cause like in the beginning, a lot of people say that they're there for you. Everybody's there when the impact first happens. Like, they're calling you, they might be bringing food over, they might come and spend time with you. But as those days, those months,
Mm-hmm.
those years start going by, a lot of people start, falling back. And it's not saying that they're not concerned. It's just not as important anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely a lot of alone time. I dabbed into some things I wasn't supposed to, picked up some habits that, I regret. But, it was part of my grieving journey and I have to accept that. And for me to be able to acknowledge that these things I know are bad, but I'm doing them because I feel like I have no other outlet. So, I did that for a time of 5, 6 years. And then I had to gather myself together and say, Tiana, what the heck are you doing to yourself? You got people who are still around, who still love you, they still care about you. It's time to focus on you. So, as that moment of my life started to kind of transpire, I decided that God did me a favor when He took her back. He knew about all those years I took care of her, and I wasn't able to understand who I was as an individual. So I had to really change my mindset to understand that what happened to her was okay. Now it's time for Tiana to understand who Tiana is.
Wow, that is deep. That's deep. I'm just. You're so profound. Like I'm just like okay because I think that's the thing. Like the mindset shift because a lot of people would never say that,
Mm-mm.
and I think and maybe you can give me your thoughts on that. That the anger sometimes that you could feel when you feel like you've been robbed or something's been taken
Mm-hmm.
from you or just whatever the case is, you maybe are unable to even consider making like a mindset switch
Mm-hmm.
because for you to say that, I mean, that's big. A lot of people are not saying that, okay, God did me a favor or that was a good thing or
Mm-hmm.
that he took this person back from me
Right.
because we mainly are moving selfishly. Like I know I don't
Absolutely.
care what condition they were in, I still wanted that person here.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you're saying, what condition my life was in or what I had lost or how it was harder to find your identity and being able to get to that point. What was one of the emotions? I know you talked about dabbling into some certain things, but was anger a part of it before you were able to get to that switch, or you just
Hell
were like open?
yeah. I
Okay.
was angry. What? You took my girlfriend.
Mm.
You took my best friend. The woman that knows me best, outside of your grandparents,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
but this the woman that carried you for 9 months. Well, for me, it was 7 months.
mm-hmm.
Gave her hell, not asked for a sibling for a long time. And she said, not with the complications you gave me. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to be the only one. And I was her baby. And it was crazy because after she had passed away, and, now you're telling people, that she's no longer here and all this other stuff. I actually met with my mom's psychologist who told me that she talked about you so much. She was like, I thought all the sessions was about you every session. She was like, it was crazy, but she was like, she adored you. So don't ever, ever think that she never thought highly of you. she never loved you or anything like that. And I've never put my head around that. Like, I would never have thought that my mom didn't care for me or anything like that. But it's just great when you're able to hear it from other people who you don't have dialogue with all the time,
Mm-hmm.
what they, what they heard, or what she may have said. So it was good. But angry, definitely, for sure. I mean, angry, so angry that I stopped going to church for years. I lost my faith completely. I questioned God every day. And I just was like, it's just me against the world. Like, I'm just going to do me until I figure it out. And thank God I was able to figure it out.
Yeah,
Because things could have definitely been different. But yes, anger was definitely one that I did for at least 4 or 5 years.
Do you ever find yourself having to revisit not how healed you are, not to say that, but I think when we talk about, like your shirt says, the grieve and the grow, and we do grow, but then like just like anything else, we can get triggers. So now with it being some years past, I ain't gonna put your age out there, but we're seasoned over here. So just like with some time had passed, like have you found any obstacles that come up? Like it could be a random day and you were feeling good, and then now you're not.
Grief is very, very sneaky. Comes in a thief in the night. Okay, you never know when it's coming. I can be in the car and the song come on and I'm toe up from the floor up. But I've learned that, like, my mom was a singer. She did albums. She was amazing, a beautiful singer, and that's the way we communicate. So anytime I'll need her presence or she feel like her presence is needed, she'll make herself available through song. So sometimes I might be in the car and the song come on and I might get triggered, but it might be a good trigger. So it'd be like, oh yes, I remember my mom used to sing this song to me all the time, So it's like, or even if I'm going through a situation and a song might come on, I'm like, dang, she knew I needed that. So I've learned how to even communicate with her in the afterlife. Like, okay, these are the signs that I know my mom's around. Like, I have a girlfriend who says her mom leaves her pennies. So, like, she might be in her house having a bad day and she might see a penny on the floor. So it's just really, how do you build that relationship? But you have to allow yourself to build those kind of relationships. Some people might not be into that, but to each his own. But it's a journey. It's just a real life journey that you have to go through. I have my ups and downs all the time. Like, I hate social media sometimes. I got friends or people I'm following. Oh, I'm pregnant. I'm going to have a baby. Oh, and here goes my mom at the baby shower. And I just be like, oh, I hate social media for this. I do.
No, that's real. No, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think, for one, this is how, I don't even want to say pessimistic we can be in the world, but when I was saying about triggers, I'm automatically thinking about something that would put you into a bad spot. But you actually are saying that there are good triggers. And I think there's people who probably would never realize that, because it's like, oh, that triggered me. Like, not like, yo, that triggered me, and it was like a good feeling, and I was able to lean into it and feel like we're not feel like, but we're communicating with my mom. And so thank you for sharing that. And then the thing about social media is so funny. I was actually on a panel recently and we talked about like comparison, not in terms of death per se, but just like more, it was more on like a woman empowerment thing, and just like, looking at other people and how do you maintain that ability not to compare. And I was like, listen, I'm gonna be fully transparent. Anybody can say this and maybe argue it, but it's just a natural thing. If you're scrolling and you see something that you don't have, it's not that you're necessarily like trying to be like, oh, I'm hating on you. It's just a feeling sometimes. It could be something small like a vacation, or it could be something real like, wow, look at the fact that your father is there to walk you down the aisle. Or like you said, your mom is at your baby shower, or even that you had a baby and now your parent is going to be able to be a part of that.
Right.
That's a real thing to kind of talk about it. Do you ever take breaks from it, or how do you move through that moment? You just say like,
so sometimes those are like my harder triggers, like just being on social media and stuff like that. But I have learned to take a step back because I know how I can become. So like, I'm really a work in progress, but I'm really glad at the growth I have. So I'm able to kind of pull myself back in. So what I'll do is that if I see something like that on social media, I'll kind of step back a little bit. Like, I might cry, I might scream in a pillow, I might just now become mute. And it sucks because I live with someone. So sometimes when I'm going through, it impacts him as well. So I want to be mindful with the decisions that I make, because if not, then he gonna be looking at me crazy like, well, what's wrong with you? why you got an attitude? You know, why you not talking? You walking up down the steps with your feet all hard like a Flintstone. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
That sounds like a direct quote, y'all.
So I'm like, you know, I need to be mindful of him. I need to be mindful of the people that I may talk to on the phone or just interact with in regards to how I handle my own personal grief. So like I said, I'm able to kind of reel myself back in and be like, all right, Tiana, you know, this is a happy moment for her, you know, or him or whatever the case may be in regards to whatever the situation was that I saw on social media. So being able to kind of pull back and gather myself has definitely been a plus in navigating this grief journey. But like I said earlier, like I have my moments all the time.
No, that makes perfect sense. So, just talking about you living with someone, I'm wondering because I'm going to assume you didn't meet them when you were 22.
Mm-mm.
But like, where does grief find itself in a relationship or any early interactions? Like, hey, as we're getting to know each other, this is something that I want to tell you that, you know, I lost a parent or I lost a child or whatever the case is. Like,
Right.
is there a time does that just organically happen, or is that something that you think is important for somebody to know? This could affect my personality. This is something that happened to me, or do people just not understand? Like, oh, you lost your mom, but that was like 10 years
Right.
ago. So
I wish somebody would.
I know.
I wish somebody would.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a fight for real.
Yeah.
In the beginning, like we were just having open conversation. Like I think it does happen naturally, definitely, but it also is a time for it. Like I'm not coming in off the back like, guess what? I lost my mom, I lost my grandma, like all these people, and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do that to them because that might be a lot for them. You know, people have to think about the dialogue you're having with people. Like I don't want to make it seem like now they got to carry the weight that I'm carrying. So definitely the timing had to be right, and actually it happened when I had like a trigger. And he was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, this song reminds me of my mom, but it's like a sad song. So now I'm in a car, boo-hooing. That was like the first time he ever seen me cry. So he was like, oh, this is deep. Like, oh, well, let me let her. And I'm glad he actually allowed me to do what I needed to do. And then we circled back. So I was glad in that moment. But as the years went on, of course, he learned other stuff too, you know, a lot of things that I had to also navigate through life. But he's okay with it. And then even just talking to him about grief. You know, he lost his grandmother. You know, someone had, he was super duper tight with, you know, it's nothing like a grandmother's love. So it was like, you know, we were navigating that together and just understanding what his triggers are. And when he's silent, I'm like, oh, I know that time might be coming. You know, the anniversary might be approaching. So it's a learning thing, you know, understanding the people that you're around and whether it's a relationship or a friendship.
Yeah, I love that. Do you think that grief, just because you're just saying so much that it's just like I got so many questions to ask you. I'm in my head like, no, don't say that. I want to say this one. But do you think that, what was I going to say? So you're talking about like that whole part of it. But do you think grief is one of those things where people say like, you don't know until you know, or until you walked in my shoes? So because what I heard you saying was that you were able to experience and respect and support what he's going through. But I'm wondering if that's only because of things you've been through, or just because some people get it. Like, do you think people have to have gone through something complicated to be able to be that way?
I truly believe you do. I tell people, I just said this to somebody the other day. They were like, oh yeah, you know, I understand what you're going through. And I was like, but you don't. Like, you don't. I'm like, you still have your parents here. You know, you still may have your grandparents here. You still even may have your great grandparents here. I have none of them here right now. I only have my paternal grandfather still alive out of all my grandparents. And then I have an uncle. I have two uncles and an aunt. And then my uncle has a daughter. So that's our little family right there. So it's like, you know, even when it came to support, you know, I knew I was going to get it, but it's just like, dang, like it's just that little bit of people. You know, some people come from bigger families,
Sure.
right? But I do truly believe that it's just something that kind of happens on its own. Like, you know, it's something that you just have to figure it out sometimes. Like, you know, it's not gonna, like you said earlier, like, you know, well, I said earlier, grief is like a thief in the night. Like, you can be just walking down the street and start getting crazy, getting sad, getting mad at everything, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's definitely something that you just have to navigate. I just hate this grief space. Like, it's just, nobody's grief is worse than somebody else's. I do want to put that out there. Everybody has their own trials and tribulations, and grief doesn't always mean death. It may just mean, you lost your job
Mm-hmm.
and now you don't know what to do. Grief can be your car broke down and you don't know how you gonna get home. Grief shows up in so many ways, and I want people to kind of get out of that aspect of thinking that grief is just the loss of a person.
Mm-hmm.
Financial grief.
That's a big
We
one. That's a big
we
one.
have a lot of things that we can grieve about, but that familial grief, parent, grandparent, auntie, uncle, siblings, those things hit different.
No, that's facts. Definitely hits different. I agree with you. This is the thing too. Like if someone told me they lost their dog or something, I understand. Like that's sad, but now that my dog is older
Mm-hmm.
and he actually is at that point, kind of, it's like hitting me in a different way. And
Mm-hmm.
I would have not like laughed at anybody for that, but
Right.
it really wouldn't have been that big of a deal. And I'm just going to be completely honest because I
Yeah.
like to be transparent. Because I couldn't really like relate. It's not that I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't care. I would be,
Right.
dang, that's sad that your dog or your cat or whatever is dying. I've never been in that position. So I didn't really understand how
Right.
much that would be, but it's like hard. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I am like crying every time I got a vet appointment. They're like, oh, you can put him down. I'm like, I can't put him down. Like it's all this
Mm-hmm.
crazy stuff. When I'm telling, I
Mm-hmm.
would tell somebody else like, well, but if your dog has all those problems, like maybe you should. But it's like, no, I'm not trying to hear that.
That's
So that's why
right.
I was saying that even with something like that, it's not necessarily losing a person, but you don't know someone's relationship with their pet, or
Correct.
in a time of grief on the journey, someone's pet could have been the only support they had.
Listen, when my uncle lost his dog, I was like sad, like really sad, because the dog literally has been around since my mom passed. So I'm like, when you really think about the time frame he's been around, I said, wow, I didn't know I needed him when I needed him. You know, I have a cat. I love my cat to death. Everybody know Kitty. But I'm gonna be sad when that time comes. That's like my kid.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So pet relationships are real.
Yeah.
Okay, they are so real. But like I said, we can't put a real number or how much grief it is, based off of whatever it may be. Everybody's gonna grieve. We all gonna grieve different, and we grieve of everything. So it's like,
How did your school handle you having, because I know we talk a lot of times about people losing people and then the bereavement days with work and all that. That was like a
Mhm.
big cause I was behind for a while, because I'm like, man, you only get 3 days or this amount of days or whatever for your parent. But I'm wondering, I don't know how school like handled that, because you said you were about to graduate with your
Right.
master's,
So
right?
I was in school when she got sick.
Okay.
So my mom, I would make my little visits up there, go see her, talk to her, all of that kind of stuff. And she would be like, no, go to class or whatever, go to class. So I did well, graduated on time, everything. So after she had passed away, only had that spring semester left, and I was able to graduate. But my school support was decent for people that I went through a whole program with, for them just being there, just from the students to the teachers, admin staff. I was just glad to be able to, okay, I can go to your office and kind of gather myself a little bit, so the support was there as well.
No, that's good to hear, definitely. And I know you were talking about when you were in the freight elevator with your mom and your family, and she was saying that she didn't want to go to ICU. Were you able to have any conversations with your mom about what was potentially like happening, or did neither of you think that this was like going to be the end?
I think that's what it was, because I definitely wasn't prepared for it at all. Definitely was not prepared for it. And it's crazy how when things transpire afterwards, you realize that things were really in order. So I'm like, well, did she know this was going to happen? Like, who now? Not saying like people shouldn't have living wills, but you should,
Mhm.
for when you're alive and when you're gone. So it don't be no real discrepancy within family, friends, whatever the case may be. But everything was in order. When I graduated with my undergrad degree in 2008, my aunt in Vegas made me a scrapbook. In this scrapbook, it had to been like 50 pages from birth all the way up until graduation. So I'm all like, I'm now thinking about like all the things that were kind of like around or I'm receiving that could have gave me an inkling. But of course, I'm not thinking about that. I'm graduating from school. I'm about to give me a little job or whatever the case may be. So I thought about that like, dag, did she do this because she knew something was going to happen? Not how soon it was going to happen, but something would eventually happen. So it kind of make you think about things and make you think about life. I always feel like people who pass away know they're going to pass away.
Mm.
I feel like they have an inkling when it's going to happen, especially when they're kind of like getting down to those last days. They know when it's going to happen. It's just us because we don't know.
Right. Yeah, and definitely not trying to deal with that for sure. I remember saying that to my dad, like, it's okay, like you can go.
Mm-hmm.
And then now when I look back, I'm like, why would I say that? I was just like caught up in the moment, like, it's okay, Dad, like you could go. And I'm like, no, I really didn't want that to happen.
No,
But it
don't
just
go.
yeah,
No.
but it's like you feel bad like when you seeing somebody in a situation like that. It's just really like difficult and
Mm-hmm.
tough to go through that.
Yeah.
Did you have to like sort out like your house? Like just because I think a lot of people don't know what that those next days are like. Like you got clothes, you got so much stuff that you have to do, and then the fact that you're the only child, thankfully, some of us have siblings or family members
Mm-hmm.
to be there, but like I can only imagine the weight that was on you for
Yeah,
that.
it was a lot. Even like going back home, I was like scary, scary. Like I would call my god brother, like, you gotta meet me at the house. Like, I don't want to go in here. I want to wash clothes. Can you like stay with me for a little bit? Like, I really didn't even the whole time my mom was in the hospital, I didn't even stay at home. I stayed with one of my sisters that go to my church. I stayed with her, and just trying to get acclimated to even getting back in that space. Initially, I didn't want to go back home. I went home for a little bit, and then I had a conversation with my uncle, and I was like, I want my own apartment. I don't want to stay here. This house can sit here. It can do whatever it needs to do. It's paid off. We ain't worried about nothing. It
Mm-hmm.
can sit here all it want. So I end up moving, and I was in an apartment for about 2-3 years, not too far from him because I wanted to be closer to somebody else. So I stayed around there, and then I felt like a nomad. Like I was going everywhere. I was staying with my god sister, stayed with her for a year, and then I eventually said I wanted to go back home. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Went back home. My uncle, we fixed it up the way that I wanted it to. And I went back home, and I'm still there now.
Still there now.
Hmm.
That is something that someone would have a house that they can go to that's paid, but it's like I can't do it, and that
Mm-mm.
just shows like the complexities, I guess, and it comes to it, and like just like the uncomfortability.
Yeah.
But now that you're there, how has that been? Like, is it just been more like it feels like I'm going like this, like I'm you, like
Right.
yeah, it feel like, but like feels like good or just like fulfilling or like this
It
is
felt
home.
good to be back home.
Hmm.
I felt her spirit in the house when I got there. I guess it was just me being, just the fear, just being scary. I didn't want to be there. So I'm like, oh, we did this in this room. We cooked a lot of meals in the kitchen. My main bedroom is her bedroom. So it's like, I it was just something to get adjusted to, but I made sure that when I went in there, it was certain things that I kept, but it was certain things that I also want to put my own spin on it to say that, like now this is the new way it's going to look. So I wanted to make sure I implemented those things, but it is what it is. Now I'm ready to get out of it. And not because of that, but it's ready to sell. We got to go.
Yeah. And how do you think you'll be okay with that?
Yeah.
That part, like just selling it?
Yep. I think so.
It seems like you seem very like in tune with your mom in a
Mhm.
sense. So like I think I try to tell people sometimes, like, if we can be open, like you said, to certain things, like the tangible relationship is over, but the intangible part can kind of still be there if we like allow it to. And you said
Mhm.
something not like funny, but kind of where you like some people not into that, and that's the truth though. Some
Mhm.
people it's just like the finality, and I think sometimes that kind of really not keeps you stuck, but it really hinders if it's just like I'm just angry this happened, like it's
Yeah.
done, rather than being like, okay, well, I know what they probably would say in this
Mhm.
situation. So,
Yep.
because especially if you've known somebody for enough time, you're like, well, I've brought similar situations to
Right.
them, and they said this, and the personality. Just like if anybody would have to figure that out about me or anybody else, be like, well, she probably would disagree with this or would
Right.
be happy with that. So, is that something that you kind of like do too? Just lend on what you think she would say.
Yeah, like my mom be like, "Oh, Tiana, girl, you crazy? Don't do that." Da-da. And I just be like, I mean, I always take everything to prayer. I gotta pray about everything. But I always lean on what would Teresa do, like if she was in this situation, because my mom was like a really like hands-on type girl about her business, all other kind of stuff. So I took a lot of those traits from her. So I'm all like, all right, Tiana, don't make no dumb decision because you don't want to regret it. So I'm like, all right, let me really put my thinking cap on. And then even if I have to extend that conversation to somebody else just to get clarification, like, boom, is this what we really gonna do? Should I do it? And then if they be like, yeah, you know what, T, just do what's on your heart, then I just be like, all right, this is the move I'm gonna make. So yeah, I think it's the best way to do it. Like I'm really in tune, girl. T might be in the room right now.
Mm,
She up in this thing.
mm,
Okay. She like, go
mm.
ahead, girl. Keep talking.
Keep talking.
Keep talking.
Shining your light with us for sure. Just a couple more questions. What
Mm-hmm.
would you say was like the good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
or worse and best, I guess, whichever words
Mm-hmm.
are better, that's happened to you in your life? So, like the best thing and then the worst thing. You could do it
Hmm.
whichever way you think.
The best and the worst. I would say the worst thing that probably happened is like we talked about earlier, just navigating life without her. I think that's probably like the worst thing. And because if somebody says you can bring somebody back, she is coming back. She is
Mm,
my person of choice.
mm,
Okay. Because my mom was only 48 when she passed away.
mm,
So of course I can get scary when I'm approaching 48, like, ugh, am I gonna make it? Not saying I'm not, but it's like a scary situation. Cause I know like my uncle was telling me, like my great grandmother had 10 siblings and all of them passed away before the age of 55. So when my great grandma was younger, they were planning for that kind of stuff. But my grandma lived to see 97.
mm.
So it's like, okay, it's hope out there. I'm not worried about that. But I think that's probably one of the worst things. The good thing is that I'm able to navigate life without her. That's one of the better things, I guess you can say, the better things. Still being able to put my foot down on the ground and be able to make executive decisions and be able to just show up as the best version of myself, which I tell people to do all the time. There's no need to send a representative. Send yourself so people can see who you authentically is, in your own space, out when you're in public or even in your own home. I don't got time for the facades and sending people that you these phony people. I ain't got time, girl. That's a whole nother conversation.
Listen, I love you. I love your energy. So, what would you say to what would you say to the 22, 23-year old you
Hmm.
that just got that news? Girl, she's gone. It's a couple of days past. Like, now that you've lived and you
Hmm.
saw how the life went, like, what would you say to her? Because I think that could speak to someone else that might be facing a similar
True.
circumstance.
I think I would tell her that that's a good one. I ask this question a lot on my podcast. Um, I would probably tell her that one, everything is going to be okay. You don't need to worry because your mom equips you with everything you needed to know. And the experiences that you're going to go through, you're going to have all the resources and services that you need. I think that's probably going to be the biggest piece of advice I can give to my younger self. Because in that moment, I felt like I knew the people were there. I knew the stuff was there. But then, like I said, after a while, those people start to disappear. So I will definitely let her know, like, everything you need, you got.
That's deep because I think a lot of times people could say it's easy to tell somebody like, yeah, it's gonna be okay, but hearing it come from someone who didn't know it was gonna be okay at some
Hmm.
point and then it did become okay for them is way more impactful and
Right.
powerful. So thank you for sharing that. So a question that I always ask on my show is, what if you had to choose a color for your grief, what would it be and why?
Green, which is actually my favorite color, green, because it means growth, flourishing, even though you feel like you might be stuck, you still growing.
Mm.
You're learning every day. You're meeting new people every day. You're going through life challenges, and these challenges help you become a better person, whether you like it or not. It can be a bad experience from being with somebody, but that right there is the lesson you're going to take to your next relationship, So just thinking about it like that, like I said, mindset was something really huge for me, shifting my mindset to understand that, like we all always hear, is light at the end of the tunnel. The light is really there, y'all. Like the light is really there, and you just have to trust yourself. You have to trust your close circle, because everybody's not going to always have your best interest at heart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and some people actually use grief against you, and we got some evil people out here, and people who don't want to see you win. So it's like, utilize all, like I said, all the resources you have, all the services that you have, to just always show up for yourself.
Listen, I love that. But talking about showing up, you've shown up not only for yourself, but for a lot of other people, I guess I'll say more specifically women, just from my vantage point, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like women who have lost their mother, and then just entrepreneurs and helping them boss up. But,
Yes.
that's another thing and part of your show. But what has that been like too? Like, I just wanted to briefly make sure we could
Yeah.
talk about that, because I think that's a beautiful thing. And I remember this has been years back now, just like
Mm-hmm.
being on a call and just like hearing the different experiences, and you facilitated that. And I don't think a lot of people, not everyone has the ability to take their pain and take what they're going through and
Mm-hmm.
then create a platform for other people to share that. And I love that about you. So just tell us a little bit about what that's been like.
So that experience has been nothing but amazing. So it's called the White Rose Society. It's a Facebook group that I created for women who have lost their moms. We have women from ages young, 18, 17, all the way up to older adults. Even from women who have lost their moms due to just regular, just I'm older and I'm just going to pass away, all the way down to addiction. Even losing mothers who may have been abused by their mates. So now, not only did you lose your mom, you lost your dad because then your dad locked up. So it's just all kinds of motherly loss in the group, and it has honestly been amazing. When I first thought of the idea, I sat on it for a while because I'm like, I know I can't be the only person going through this. That was a part of my healing journey, starting the group. So I said, okay, I'm gonna make this group and I'm gonna see how it's gonna go. So I had a couple little people. I'm like, dang, man, you tell me, I know there's more people out here, but I have to also understand that people might not be prepared to get in a space like that, because there's times where we're completely silent in a group. And then there's times where we just chatty, we talking about everything. Somebody just said the other day, I just had a dream. My mom coming up in my dreams all the time. Does anybody else experience anything like that? So, it's just those kind of conversations that can allow us to go through this grieving journey together. You're not the only one going through it, whether they're physically here or just not physically there. That's the difference. You had people who literally pass away and we're putting them in the ground or we're getting them cremated. But then it's also mothers who just aren't around but are physically here on earth. So, that's a whole different type of grief. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that I was able to curate that. And these women have been just simply amazing. We have women from everywhere. And I have people constantly sending a request, sending a request, sending a request, because they want to be a part of something. Even if I have someone on my timeline who may have just experienced the loss of her mother, I always comment, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. And I know exactly what this feels like. But whenever you're ready, I have this community just for you. I just had somebody join the group because they saw that comment. They was like, I never knew something like this existed. So I just want the people to know, like, there is community for you. There is support for you. I've even had women go to the cemetery with other ladies who live in the same area because she hasn't been since her mother was buried. So just creating that support system for the ladies has just been simply amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And just because I think that, again, you just have such a great light. So definitely, where can people just, well, I mean, we can talk about that at the end, but I want to make sure people know where they can tap in. And so a lot of our audience does also happen to be, a good majority of it happens to be men.
Okay.
And so just before we get out of here, I'm just curious, like, what would you say to a man or a young guy, whoever, that could be in relationship with someone that's lost their mother, or it could be like their friend, it could be anything.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, I think our women definitely I think women have a difficult time as well, but I also know that a lot of times men aren't always as in tune. So just like anything to say, like, hey, look out for this, or you might want to do that. Like, if you have any advice for them as well, I think that would be.
I think my biggest piece of advice would definitely be patient with her. When you're patient with her, you allow her to kind of take the journey. But if y'all, like, let's say if it was like a couple and y'all really like into each other, you would also allow yourself to take the journey with her. And there's some things that we just can't pull away from. Some things we just can't get away from, because she's going to grieve regardless if you with her or not. That's just how it is. So I would say definitely be patient with her and communicate with her. Once somebody finds out, let's say somebody passed away, don't even have to be a mom. Oh, somebody passed away, you can start seeing things that they do, especially if you're somebody who's in tune with how they, how they maneuver. Oh man, she just went in the kitchen and she just got quiet, like, or, she not even talking to me as much today. Just small things like that can really mean something is going on. So ask questions. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to ask questions. Yeah, you might get an answer you might not want,
Mm-hmm.
but you asked it and then you got clarity.
Yeah, thanks for that. Because I think that's another topic for another day. But just like the support of people when things were good and then they just became bad. Like someone lost someone unexpectedly, and
Mm-hmm.
you guys were in this relationship where y'all was friends or whatever the case is, and then it's like, wow, everything changed, and I really don't know how to show up for you. So anytime we can offer advice, just pour back into each other. So what else do you have going on? Because you also have your own shows and so many amazing things going on, doing a lot for
Yeah.
just branding and just so many things. So like just plug yourself.
Girl, just be doing a lot. Just be doing a lot. Head be hurting and everything.
Yeah.
So I of course do branding consulting, creative direction, and that's under my agency, the Divine Connections Agency, where we put that brand with purpose and passion to make sure that people understand exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? And then I have my own podcast called Purposely Bossing Up, which everyone can stream on all podcast platforms. We have some visuals from season 5 about the release episode 100. That's long overdue. But yeah, we're super excited about all the great things that are coming from that space, which is actually a space that I wanted to concentrate on for 2024. Just trying to teach people how to navigate the media space, teaching them how to utilize their platform as a major outlet to put themselves in spaces like where I was last summer at Essence or at the Stellar Awards or whatever the case may be. So people understand that it's not just, oh, we're just talking. You know what I mean? These are conversations that people should be having, especially when they're important conversations like this one. So just helping people navigate that media space. We're going to be hosting an event down during Essence Festival weekend called Elevate and Celebrate. So we're going to be celebrating the culture and the arts of New Orleans, highlighting these individuals and getting to understand their stories. Because who would have known that the first African American tattoo artist and the longest running female owned tattoo shop is in New Orleans? Nobody never knew
Not
that,
me.
right? They're not even talking about Miss Jace, okay? They're not even talking about her, but we want to highlight her and everything that she's doing. So I'm super excited about that. But who knows? There's a lot of other things coming. I got on some fly glasses. We got some glasses about to drop soon. So, I want everybody to just be excited for everything that's coming down the pike.
Definitely. And where can we follow you to make sure that we stay in touch and in tune?
So, we got a long list of stuff, but everything is in the bio. So you can follow me at the Tiana Experience, and that's TheTijAnia Experience, and everything is in the bio. So you'll be able to tap and follow from there.
Love it. Listen, anything else you want to say, I definitely want to give you the opportunity to do it. But otherwise, like, you've been a phenomenal guest. I super appreciate it.
Yes.
I'm glad we finally got to have you here. Just your experience. Obviously, I would never wish that or want that to happen to anyone. Right. But just being able to admire and cheer you on from afar, just seeing like you be able to just keep going and then again extend that to other people, the opportunities for them to grow and lean into what they have going on in their journey, because it's a journey. You said there were a journey a lot, and I think that's my biggest takeaway. Mm-hmm. Because it helps you pace. It helps you give yourself grace when you realize that we're not like running this thing. It's like, we got a journey,
I'm not going to run from something I got to go through anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to finish no faster. So you just got to take every day for what it is. One day you might have a good day. Tomorrow might be a bad day. Mm-hmm. And accept that. That's the biggest thing, acceptance, which is also one of the 5 pillars of grief. Mm-hmm. Accepting that this is going to happen. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. I know a lot of people who think, immediately after something happened, I got to go to therapy. Some people wait years. I waited years before I started going to therapy. So it's very important to, of course, consult with someone that can assist you through the journey, and help you grow from that. Because like I did, I took my pain and turned it into purpose. And a lot of people should do that. We are our own testimonies, and people should understand that people are watching us every single day. So, be on your P's and Q's. I ain't telling you to behave, but, do what you need to do because people are learning from you.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Listen, I appreciate having you here, guys. Drop us some comments. Let us know your thoughts. Make sure you're following everything that she has going on. It's amazing. T, it's been a blessing. Yes. Guys, if you're not following me, I don't know what you're doing. Go do that over on Instagram at I_am_J Nicole. Guys, so next time, you already know. Love and light. Peace.